Thank you, Echo. It's wonderful to see your faces on my screen and wonderful to have this opportunity to enjoy Sangha. It's a beautiful evening out in the midst of this stormy week we've had. And I know that there are still many people without power. Some of Sangha members in Westchester have not got their computers going yet because they have nothing to power them with. So is this a beautiful evening or a difficult evening? We're probably each experiencing it a little bit differently. But for me, it's a beautiful evening, and I'm so glad we can all be here together. For me, this has been a great week of study, and it's been a privilege to hear the Dharma talks given by the previous speakers. I was very taken with Bokeh Shoes' image of the fireflies flashing as an illustration of the actualization of all beings. So all this flashing, this great actualization, this sort of floating neural network, what a wonderful image. And you couldn't say that one firefly was a huge neural network. On the other hand, without the flashing of one firefly, it's a different floating neural network. So many, one, the actualization of many, the actualization of one. Well, what we're talking about is not so clear. So I thought Bokeh Shoes' image was a great illustration of what Dogen Zenji means when he says, don't make one or many the criterion of your practice. Clarifying the Dharma is not about coming down on one of those sides or the other. And then we heard from Joshin Roshi about the four elements and their different qualities, and how they can actualize wisdom and compassion, or delusion, suffering, and pain. And as I was hearing her speak, I said, well, Dogen Zenji would be so down with this because he says in one of his early essays, the four elements, the stuff that makes us up, those are Prajna. Those are Prajna. That's what gives us the possibility to actualize our lives as Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And not only that, but eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, and the five skandhas, which are supposed to make us deluded. Also Prajna, according to Dogen, including standing up and sitting and lying down. All of these are Prajna. So we are lacking nothing. We have all the elements that we need to actualize enlightenment, as well as to actualize the most extreme and painful delusion. Again, delusion, enlightenment, the boundary lines can blur. Sometimes we don't know what to say. I think of, for instance, the Civil War, which ended chattel slavery, which we know was just the beginning of the struggle, but it ended chattel slavery. World War II, which ended fascism, killing and mass slaughter beyond what any of us who were not in those situations can imagine. Were they the actualization of delusion or the actualization of enlightenment? How are we supposed to feel about this stuff? Again, not so clear. And then finally, we come to Shinryu Sensei's very moving talk, in which he sort of boiled it all down for us in a way that I think would have made Dogen very proud, where he just asked the question, the fundamental koan, what is the painting of a rice cake? What is the painting of a rice cake? What is being actualized? And he gave a long list of many painful situations, people in Latin America, and of course throughout the world, losing loved ones to the epidemic, people, sons, brothers, being murdered by the police, right on our time, right on camera, right on TV. These are the actualizations of our time. And so it's not possible, as Dogen says right at the start in his essay, Gabio, to separate our actualization from all the actualizations that are arising with us. We all share this common life. We are all turned by these expressions of the Dharma. And it is our practice, it is our responsibility to respond, or as Dogen puts it in his essay, as we are painted by the myriad actualizations. As we are painted, we must also paint. We must act, we must feel, we must use all these human faculties that we have, all these Buddha faculties that we have, and we must also not only be actualized by the 10,000 things, our practice must be the actualization of the 10,000 things. And as we understand that over time, as we open up and open up and open up and aren't so small-minded and stuck on ourselves, the distinction between me and other, inside and outside, begins to blur. So the actualization of others is not separate from the actualization of my own life. My actualization will affect every one of the other actualizations of Buddhas and things. Well, it's a pretty heavy responsibility in a way. And yet this is what it is to live in the human realm. It's not so special, but we must practice. We must practice in order to paint enlightenment, to be turned by these things and to turn them in a way that does not exacerbate the three poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance. But as Shinryu said, to allow ourselves to overflow with the wisdom and compassion, which is always present and always available to ourselves. So how do we respond? This is the fundamental question. This is the fundamental question of our practice. So some of you may remember, I believe it was our winter Ango at Garrison, where we had the studied text expressions, which happens to be the fascicle before painting of a rice cake in the Shobo Genzo. Roshi would know because she keeps a track of every study text and the dates on which we studied them. But I think that's when we studied the fascicle expression. And obviously, Dogen's mind was running in similar directions when he wrote those, because he starts out Gabio saying, all Buddhas are realization, all Buddhas and things are realization. Expressions, he starts out by saying, all Buddhas and ancestors are expression. And in that essay, he raises the question that I'm talking about here. How do you respond? How do you actualize the Dharma as you are being actualized by the Dharma? How do you turn the Dharma wheel as you are turned by the Dharma wheel? And what he says is, because all Buddhas and ancestors are expression, when the time comes for a Buddha ancestor to select a Buddha ancestor, the question that is always asked is, how is your expression? How is your expression? And of course, this business of selecting Buddha ancestors is a little rarefied. You know, it comes out of monasticism and the desire for there to be abbots to continue the monastery and so on, and Dharma transmission and all that. And of course, that's important, and it's certainly a preoccupation of those of us who teach. We want there to be good teachings long after we are gone, but that's not the most important thing. This is a question for each one of us, whether we're a Dharma teacher or whether we're a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker. How is your expression? Or as Shinryu put it, what is the painting of a rice cake? So it occurs to me that there are two different ways of being inadequate in expression. And one way is to say, well, my actualization is my actualization, and screw you, Jack. You know, if I want to ride a car at 100 miles an hour down Fifth Avenue, that's my expression. If I want to beat you up because you asked me to wear a goddamn mask and I'm an American and I have rights, that's my expression. Well, what Dogen says about that is truthful expression does not come to us from others. That's one way of not having a true expression, is to imitate others, imitating what we think we're supposed to feel or be, trying to be a good Buddhist, maybe, and talk like a good Buddhist, and worrying about whether other people will think we're good Buddhists. All of that does not come from others, says Dogen. And he says it also does not come from ourselves. Now, isn't that remarkable? My actualization, if it's a true actualization, does not come from little old Rio, the half in the bag old man who lives in Brooklyn. You know, Rio's kind of a crotchety old person. He complains and bitches all the time, and sometimes he does what he's supposed to do, and sometimes he doesn't do what he's supposed to do. But my actualization does not come from that small self, or as Dogen puts it, the self that advances and confirms the 10,000 things. That's the delusive self. How can I make things easier for number one? And this, that, and the other thing shouldn't exist because I think it shouldn't exist. It comes true actualization, true expression, dotokuchi, comes when the 10,000 things advance and confirm the self, says Dogen. So my turning of things is the expression of my being turned by things, my openness, my willingness to drop body and mind, self and other, right and wrong, and allow what Daido Roshi called the whole catastrophe to be myself as I'm living out the life of the self, to be my practice as I'm living out the life of practice. And then if I'm able to do that and I'm not attached to that small self that wants to confirm and manipulate everything it comes across to its own advantage, then I'm turned by the great Dharma wheel. And when I bow, when I sit up straight on my cushion, when I thank Roshi and all the teachers who have come before me, I'm allowing myself to be turned by the 10,000 things and to turn them in giving a Dharma talk that is only partially diluted. Maybe only 90% diluted. And maybe there's a little kernel of expression here, a little kernel of who I am when a body and mind drop away and all that baggage is laid aside. And I just have faith in the Buddha Dharma. And as you have noticed, I don't sound anything like Enkyo Roshi or look anything like Enkyo Roshi. My personality is not like Enkyo Roshi's. Hers is not like Bernie's. Bernie was nothing like Maizumi Roshi, and so on and so forth, all the way back. All of us are expressing the Dharma or trying our best. And yet, none of us are the same person. None of us has the same mind. We're born of the same lineage. Our lives are the lives of the self, the true self. We arise together in our moments, and we die together in our moments. And yet, each of us has our expression. It's so important for us to express the Dharma as who we are, not to imitate or mouth previous teachers and sayings. That doesn't mean that we reject the teachings that have come down to us as painted rice cakes that aren't the real thing. No, they are complete actualization. We are being turned by them. We are being turned by the actualization of the Buddhas and ancestors. And now we must turn as the Buddhas that we are, as the Bodhisattvas that we are. We must open up. We must reach out. We must express ourselves. And in this way, we live out the 4 vows. In this way, we save all beings.